Good morning, Boomer. Today, before I get started, real quick, I gotta say, nothing says America is back more than Ohio State being in the national championship game. Now, of course, for them to get there, they've got to beat the beloved Texas Longhorns, of which I do have a heart for because I have grandgirls and a grandson now that has been born there. They're true Texans, but I forgive them for that. As for me and mine, meaning my son, we're going for the Buckeyes, having been from Ohio. So go Bucks, um, rooting for you. Okay, let me get right into it. The worst investment of my life, literally, as you'll see today, cost me millions, was, as a boomer, starting a business. Starting a business. This story came to me, this memory, when I was sitting around one morning having my coffee, early morning, and I was watching some YouTube, as I always do or typically do. And as I often watch, there's a number of YouTubers that are in their 30s, maybe early 40s, and they talk about their investments that they've made. They're multimillionaires now. Most of them have made it through real estate, or a lot of them just put money in Tesla. The last 5 or so years, Tesla, they've made millions. So it's like that got me thinking, what if I had taken the money back in 1997 and put it in a stock? Now, in some ways, this story is a bit unrealistic, but true nonetheless. And the possibility, nonetheless, would have changed my life forever. And I know looking back is somewhat, um, unrealistic. But let me tell you this story today. So the backstory is it was 1997, 96. I was reaching 11 years of teaching. I was burned out. I was thinking of doing more. I wanted to get more. I wanted to earn more. And I felt the business was the way to go. There was a lot of things, everything I read, and back then this was pre-internet, but I read about the importance of working for yourself. Had tried many things, and throughout life have tried many things, other things. I read a book, it was 1996, it came out, called The Millionaire Next Door. And what I remember of it is that the majority of people that had become millionaires did so with really just unflashy uh, living, unflashy businesses, living very simply. A lot of them didn't take vacations. They drove old cars. They didn't eat out. They were very frugal. And I thought, well, that's not a bad life per se. But even if those people, had such simple lives, I could do that. Now, the question was, what business to begin? So, as I mentioned, I think I was 40 years old. I'd been teaching 11 years. I It was 1997, and I was at a point in the teaching that I needed to make a decision. If I really wanted to go for it, which I did, I needed to do it now because at 15 years in the teaching, I would be vested. And I thought, even if things didn't work out, what I would lose, I can make up later. It wasn't tremendous difference. We weren't talking millions of dollars, even big dollars. And remember, back then, I think I was making 30 some thousand a year in a higher paying district in the state of Colorado. I mean, again, talk about a struggle really. When my friends were making twice that, three times that in tech typically, so, or sales. So I thought, I'm going to do it. I remember a party being thrown for me by my teacher friends, my friends at school, and all wishing me well, very excited for me. More than one said, I admire so much you doing this. I wish I had the guts to do it. I wish I could do it. Now, again, my kids were growing. I was still able to support them. I was divorced. So a lot of things were different with me than with them. But I remember their enthusiasm. How did I put it? They were envious. I remember one of them got me the card they got me. This this summarizes the feeling of many teachers at the time, and I don't doubt now. It said, "Congratulations, best of luck," but it said, "Congratulations, Phil, on getting the hell out of here." That's true. But it was a great party. And so now, how did I find the business? Well, back in the day, 1997 or so, we didn't have the internet per se, where we weren't on it. I think AOL was starting up, but coming around the corner, but nothing. We had user groups, I think, on online, which are old, what we would probably call chat rooms or news groups and that sort of thing. But there were publications, weekly publications. I know we had the kinds you would find. You still find some today at some of the grocery stores, etc., where they were free and they were ads would be in them. And this is back when businesses used publication ads, print ads. There was a thing called the Thrifty Nickel in Colorado. I read that fairly often. If you're looking to buy something, even a car, furniture, whatever, these ads were in the Thrifty Nickel. Anyway, there was a business broker business. They advertised a job, or I'm sorry, they advertised a business for sale, which was a publication for seniors, profitable, very well established. I think it had been in business 10 plus years. And I thought, wow, I've got to check into this. I have a background in publishing. I did the yearbook. I started a school newspaper. Let me show you that real quick. I actually went and looked for it because um, these were the greatest parts of my teaching career when I was able to have some freedom to start my own projects. So I started a newspaper, an actual newspaper for, this was the first edition. We named it The Brick. So many stories, but I wanted to call it, or we wanted to call it The Juice, but O.J. Simpson had just gone on the loose, on the run, and done the thing, and the administrator said, no, we don't want The Juice. So we went to The Brick, and we call it the bedrock of news at Challenger. Pretty corny stuff, but fun. This was the first edition. I love it. The kids, these 13 and 14-year-old kids, came up with pretty much everything. I just encouraged them, and I love that title. I don't know who came up with that. Exclusive Santa Claus Tells All. I remember when it first came out, the school was just like, one of the teachers came up to me and said, Phil, this is a real newspaper. Because I found a company, I think it was in Atlanta, Georgia, that actually would produce and print school newspapers. Now, in doing this, I learned, and the yearbook, I learned about publishing. I learned about Macintoshes. I learned about PageMaker. And these were the things used to produce that. So when I found this publication for sale, I thought, well, I know the publishing side of it. I can print it. I could put it together. I can sell the ads. It's already established. I'll service the accounts. So that's where we began. In a few sentences, I contacted the broker. The broker said, let's meet. He's real excited because as I look back on it now, this business hadn't gotten no one real serious takers on it. Warning flag number one. Not really. It was something I had a passion for. So we set up a meeting. I met the owners, he and his wife, and had a great conversation. He was also available to future phone calls that I made over the course of a couple of weeks about how to and what they did. Now they had spent. Here's what happened. They backed out. Made the offer. It looked like it was going to go. He backed out. In the course of the discussions I had with them, I did pick up a few times where there was a concern on their part that here's a guy, because he asked me, why do you want to do this? There was like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I'll work 7 days a week, night and day. But they kind of knew how this thing could beat you down and beat you up. At least I'm assuming, because guess what? They pulled out. I remember the broker being really upset, saying, "Look, man, he said this to me. They haven't had a bite on this in months, and all of a sudden they're not going to take a legitimate offer." He was really shocked. Backstory on that: they ended up selling. They were in negotiation to sell to Ad Age, big corporation, I think out of California, that was buying up these senior publications, these weeklies and monthlies, and they're making a big conglomerate. And as it turned out, they ended up selling to them, got a big lump sum cash payoff, and then he went into printing customized logos, color logos. Anyway, so they ended up selling that. So here's what I did. Being 40 years old at the time, a younger boomer, I decided I would do my own. And I've always been kind of a self starter, a creator of sorts. And I'm just going to do my own publication. So what came from that was I made the decision to leave teaching. I cashed out. I had a little lump sum of change. Uh, I don't know, 30 some $1,000, I think it was, after I paid my taxes and my penalties. And I started the pub. I didn't want to compete with that one because that was pretty well established in the area I was in. So I went to Denver. I actually commuted um, to start Mile High Times. Truly. Now, that doesn't mean then what it means today. You know, Colorado became the first state in the United States to recreationalize marijuana. And back then, though, you know, it was against the law for sure. But Mile High Times, for those of you from Colorado, you know exactly why I called it that. It was 100% the reason. Denver is the Mile High City, 5,280 feet. Mile High Times. It was going to be geared toward the senior, the baby boomer, talking about their concerns, their interests, and I was going to sell ads for it to monetize it. I went out and I invested in the newest Macintosh laser printer. I had to look it up today. It actually, they quit making them a year or two after that. You know, technology was just advancing. And I also bought the newest Macintosh 9500 power, not power source, power station. So I had really cutting edge technology, the best laser printer in the world on the market to do my proofs, etc., and to provide to the printer. Set everything up, came out, and then through the course of the next year found that it was an understatement to say it was tough to get people to buy into ads. I did make some great connections, but it didn't go. As a matter of fact, I remember talking to the guy, did a lot of research, did a lot of legwork. I talked to a guy who, no, I was 40, he was in his late 60s or mid 60s, maybe 70. Old guy in San Diego, retired, and we were talking about it, and he said, you know, Phil, the future, you know, they can make these coupons right now, right on you can send them through email on your computer. They can print them and take them to the store and get discounts, etc. He said, and we were talking about there was a real belief that newspapers are going to die. Red flag number two, I had no idea how technology, and to the extent technology was going to change our world, because I could never, ever see a newspaper, an actual newspaper dying. You know, back in the day, we got both the morning edition and then the other one, which was the free press. And then in the afternoon, the Gazette came. And it was a daily activity to have your newspaper in hand, have your coffee, your breakfast, your dinner, and be reading the newspaper. I never thought and I remember saying, people will not give up a physical copy of the newspaper. Never imagined it. I was trying to think when I gave up the newspaper. Just, oh my gosh. You know, I don't even buy magazines, subscribe to anything print. It's all online now. A topic for a future discussion. And if you remember that change in your life where newspapers, where you read religiously the newspaper every day, got your news from it, but where you finally broke and said, I'm just going to go to my website, go to my, you know, it wasn't Google back then, and get your news. When that might have happened for you, put a comment in. So here's what happened. I'm sitting here, as I said a month or so ago, being kind of nostalgic, reminiscing about what if, and the thought occurred to me as I'm thinking about these guys that made all this money and their Tesla and their this, that, and the other. What if I had taken the money in 1997? Now, this is how I think. But what if I had, and this is kind of fun to look back and just consider, what if I'd taken that money, about $35,000, and put it in a stock. So I started thinking about some of the stocks. And one of the first ones that came to mind, as it so turns out, was Amazon. And Amazon's IPO was 1997. I wrote it down here, May 15th, 1997. Now let's pretend I put $35,000 into an IPO, into a company that was headed by a young nerd selling books out of his garage or his bedroom, parents' bedroom at that. All right. What would this money be worth if I would have bought Amazon stock during the IPO? Well, there's some confusion on this, and believe me, for an English major versus a finance, I'm not sure this is accurate, but I'm pretty close because I did cross-check it with Motley Fool, and Motley Fool did I used Chat GPT to calculate all of the, there were 4 stock splits over the course of these years, according to Motley Fool, and of course the compounding deals and the dividends were reinvested, etc. So literally buy the stock, sit on it, get up this morning, and go try to cash out. Well, let's figure out if I would have taken the cost of that printer computer, which was actually $9,000, but the printer was up near $6,000 at that time of the 35. And if I would have put 6,000 toward Amazon stock, okay, so today that 6,000 investment in the Amazon stock would be worth 17.5 million. How about I just did 1,000? Because I know you're saying, oh, but would you do that? No, I wouldn't. But let's just say I took 1,000. That would be worth 2.19 million today, $2 million. Now, if I knew Jeff Bezos and we were buddies, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, Phil, I got this great business idea, but I'm selling books out of my bedroom. You should see it. But I'm going to make some big money in this, man. Like, come into the business with me." Maybe I might have put more in. Now, just for fun, I ran the numbers on if I put 35,000 into Amazon back then, it would be worth $102 million. What about just $100? $100. Put $100 like a gamble on the table and let it ride. That $100 would be worth $292,000 today. If I went back in time, what would I do? I would invest. I wouldn't start a business. Well, I might, but I would invest. I made sure that whatever I was doing, I would invest. And I've read or heard from people today is to live below your means and invest in ETFs, in something long-term, in the S&P index fund, and maybe in some stocks that were showing great potential. I think there's people out there that say, follow Buffett, etc. But I would invest. Now, I should throw in here, I did invest. But through the course of life and life events and surviving on a teacher's salary, I had to get into those investments. They're just, I guess I didn't have to, but I did. And the alternatives were, it was the way to go. I thought I could always recover from these withdrawals after penalties, after taxes. And so here I am, making the best today of the way things have turned out. That's kind of what all this derives from, these morning coffee thoughts. And going forward from here, I still think there's great opportunity, even for an older person. And I'm excited about it. And I think the key to that is keeping up with technology and keeping up with the ideas, considering it, listening to the younger people tell us about what's coming and what's going to happen. That's going to be key with maybe how I go forward. But bottom line is, instead of starting a business, I would be making an investment, doing investments. And I'll just throw this in here because I know there's going to be a lot of people thinking, oh, business is the best thing you can do. And I hear it today, buy businesses, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Yes and no, because the failure rate of businesses is pretty high. I think the biggest challenge now at this stage of my life, staying healthy, and time is not on our side or my side. So what part of making the best of this way things have turned out is doing YouTube, taking what retirement I have, supplementing it, and living life. Not living, starting a business, especially at this age, that might take 60, 80, 100 hours a week. I don't have the energy or the time to do that type of thing. So in the future, I'm going to talk about this is the good thing, the opportunities we as retirees have at our disposal to at least supplement our income or even create a great business with using the technology and maybe doing it with a lot less effort than what would have been required in the past. Okay, thanks, Boomer. I appreciate you listening. I particularly appreciate if you're still here. Leave a comment. Have you started a business? What's been your experience? I know there's got to be some success stories out there and also some failures. And more importantly, what are we doing now? What do we do now? What do you choose to do? As for now and today, it's time to go to kickoff because we're 2 hours away from Ohio State kicking off on home field advantage Texas's turf in there in Arlington, the Cotton Bowl. I don't know why. Well, it just worked out that way. But anyway, we're going to go watch that game. I'll report back. Matter of fact, here's my bet. Since we're talking about return on investments, if Ohio State wins the national championship, you who are watching this now are required and must subscribe. If they lose, I don't know. You tell me if they lose, what do I have to do? Go Bucks.